I'm just to start by saying that this is both the scariest thing and the most exhilarating thing I think I've ever had to do. I've been talking with Pastor Brent for months about doing this, and at one point I had it written out, but I didn't want it to sound scripted. The last year and a half for me has been a wild ride, to say the least. January 1st of last year, I woke up in a jail cell and didn't know what I was going to do. My release was coming up. Had no idea what I was going to do. And I didn't realize it at the time, but the person who would be my probation officer came to me and she said, I'm going to tell you, I got a job to do, but I understand what you're going through. I've seen the other side, but I do have a job to do. I'm going to do it. So she kept me on the straight and narrow, and shortly after getting out, I found out that I became homeless, lost everything that I ever owned. Didn't know what I was going to do because I had no money, none of my possessions, or very few of them. And I was lost. And forgive me, so I just kept going. Wake up each day, and fortunately but by God, I got a job that I probably don't deserve. I met the man who would become my landlord. I was literally every red flag he had ever been warned about, and he took a chance on me. And it's worked out beautifully. But I still was lost. I got a job, I got a house, but I'm still lost. Don't really have anything to go. The old me would have went and got some alcohol and had a party, and that's it. But I didn't want to do that. And my friend Scott here, he kept saying, you got to come to church. You got to come to church. I was like, I'm not going to church. But he wouldn't take no for an answer. So eventually I went to church with him and went there for a little bit, and it wasn't right. And I told him it wasn't right, and he said, man, that's fine. He's like, so kind of just went along the summer and lived life by the seat of my pants, and things were I was getting by, but I wasn't living, and life had kind of stalled out a little bit. And it ended up, my car died. And I always say that I know God doesn't work in this way, but I think he had enough of my questioning him. And I walked onto a car dealership one night, not even trying to buy a car. I was asking questions about one, and didn't think, here I was, I'd just been homeless, got out of jail. There was no way I was going to walk off the dealership lot with a car. And so I dared God, and I said, yeah, you get me this car, first thing I'll do is I'll go to church. Well, he called my bluff. The next day I bought it, and I couldn't believe it. And I didn't go that Sunday, but I went the next Sunday. And I started what I call a church finding journey. And went to a couple churches, and they just weren't right. I went to this thing in Bloomsburg. It was like a community thing for Christmas that a church puts on, and that's where I met my friend Brandy. I saw her sitting over there somewhere. And first it started off, she stole some snacks off the snack table for me. But in her defense, they were Little Debbie's Christmas tree snacks, so it was understandable. And she started telling me, because I asked her if she had gone to that particular church, and she said, no, I go to NC Church. And I was like, where's that? And she's like, well, it's in Berwick. I looked it up, and sure enough, it was there. And somehow, when I first Googled churches in Berwick, it never popped up. Had no clue this place existed. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to go next week. That was December 17th. I haven't missed a Sunday since. And right away, I didn't realize it, but God had put people in my place, like my buddy Bill out there. We had actually met at a laundromat several times before, and never realized until he finally came up to me one day and says, "Hey, you don't recognize me, do you?" "Buddy, I don't know you from Adam." And he was like, "We talk at the laundromat all the time." I'm like, "Ah, cool." So then now we have like a little thing, like we want to start a laundromat ministry someday. And then something else happened, because like I finally as I'm listening to Pastor Rick give his sermons every Sunday, I'm like, man, like I'm actually learning something. I had gone to church for years before. I always listened, but I never heard what the pastor was saying. And then one day, Pastor Rick said he needed a volunteer to run the lyrics computer.
Whose is it? My dad's.
I made a beeline for him right after service, and ended up like, "Hey man, God's given me so much in the last year. Use me." And it's worked out. Like I love it because, and I tell Pastor Brent, tell Pastor Rick all the time, I feel sorry for the people that go to church here, because a lot of you only get to hear his message one time, unless you go back and listen to it on YouTube. But I get to read it twice and get to hear it twice. And instead of me going to other people and saying, "Hey, what was the service about?" people are coming to me and asking me what it was about. And for the first time in my life, I can go back and I can recall everything that Pastor Rick has said since I started coming here. First day I came at the great time, because I tell Pastor Rick all the time, First Samuel spoken to me. Like, I mean, I really think like he wrote it for me. And not everything has been perfect. Every day I struggle. Every day I fall short of God's glory. But I pick myself back up the next day, because God's told me it's a new beginning. When the sun comes up, I get another chance. And I thought that I had all this done up until this week. But God was like, "Yeah, I'm not done with you, man. I got more to show you." I had a custody hearing for my son this week. I told Pastor Brent, I said, "Well, I'm either going to spend the night in jail, think about it, or I'm going to get a fine, because I wrote a judge a letter that not many people would do." And I went in there, I was scared. I really thought I was going to jail. But instead, God gave the judge the knowledge and the wisdom to hear my pain in that letter. And I came out of there with a victory in my custody situation. Never would have thought it. And that was Monday. Well, I'm like, okay, testimony's done. Then comes Saturday morning, well, Friday and Saturday, my buddy Mark was reframing his laundry door, the door frame for my laundry room, and I was just kind of venting on him and telling him all the things that I've gone through with the custody. And he was like, "Man, I understand. I've been there too." And then he shared with me what he went through. And it was like you could have mirrored the two situations. And he said some things that gave me courage and encouragement for the future and what to do. And so, yeah, I told you, Mark, but I appreciate that. And in coming here, I didn't find a church. I found a home and a family. And Pastor Rick, you said that to me one night. I didn't want to bother Pastor Rick. I was having a real rough night, and I texted him, and he said, "I'm going to call you." And I was like, "Nah, don't take time away from your family." And his response was, "You are family." And that means more than anything. And this morning, I know Pastor Brent knows that I've been nervous about this. So every time he gives a sermon, I always text him in the morning. I say, "You got this, brother." So I'm getting ready this morning. My phone dings. Pastor Brent, "You got this, brother." So I love you all. I love the church. And you guys have all been a blessing to me.